the ancient battle strategy that would still work today. A Carthaginian general stands on a hill in 216 BCE. He's outnumbered 2-1. The Roman army in front of him has 50,000 of the best-trained soldiers in the world. He has mercenaries, conscripts, and elephants that might turn on him. In 6 hours, 45,000 Romans will be dead, and he won't lose a single formation. The tactic he uses that day is still taught in every military academy on Earth. The US Army used it in Iraq. The Germans used it in World War II, and you've probably never heard its name. It's called the double envelopment, and it's the most devastatingly effective military maneuver ever conceived. If you want to understand the one ancient strategy that never became obsolete, hit subscribe right now. Because what you're about to learn isn't just history, it's the blueprint for how battles are still won today. And once you see it, you'll never watch a war movie the same way again. The year is 216 BCE. Hannibal Barca has invaded Italy. He's already humiliated Rome in 2 major battles. Now, Rome sends the largest army it's ever assembled to crush him once and for all. The Roman consuls Varro and Paulus command 87,000 men. Hannibal has 50,000. The Romans are confident. They have numerical superiority, better equipment, and they're fighting for their homeland. Hannibal does something unexpected. He arranges his army in a crescent shape, with the weakest troops in the center and his best forces on the flanks. The Gauls and Iberians in the middle are told to do one thing: retreat slowly. The Romans see this weak center and do exactly what their doctrine demands. They push forward with their heavy infantry, punching into Hannibal's line. The center bows backward like a drawn bowstring. The Romans press harder, sensing victory. Then the trap closes. Hannibal's cavalry, having defeated the Roman horsemen on the wings, wheels around and strikes the Roman rear. Simultaneously, his African infantry on both flanks turns inward, attacking the Roman sides. The Romans are now surrounded on all sides: front, flanks, and rear. They can't maneuver, can't retreat, can't even lift their weapons properly because they're packed too tightly. For the next several hours, Hannibal's forces methodically butcher them. By sunset, 70,000 Romans are dead or captured. It's the worst military disaster in Roman history, and it's a masterclass in the double envelopment. The genius of the double envelopment isn't complexity, it's psychology and geometry working together. First, the psychology. Armies want to attack what appears weak. When Hannibal's center retreated, it looked like Roman strength was winning. The Romans committed more and more troops to exploit the breakthrough. This is human instinct. Push where the enemy yields. Second, the geometry. When you're surrounded, your numbers become a disadvantage. 100,000 men in a circle can't all fight at once. Only the outer ring engages. Everyone inside is just waiting to die. Meanwhile, the encircling force, even if smaller, has its entire army engaged and fighting effectively. Third, the moral collapse. Soldiers can fight when they see an escape route. When they're surrounded, panic spreads faster than any commander can control. At Cannae, Romans trampled each other trying to escape. Unit cohesion dissolved. It became a slaughter, not a battle. The double envelopment doesn't just defeat an army, it annihilates it. Hannibal wasn't the first to use this tactic, but he perfected it. The principle of envelopment appears in military thinking as far back as Sun Tzu's Art of War in the 5th century BCE. Sun Tzu wrote, "To a surrounded enemy, you must leave a way of escape." He understood the psychological component. A completely surrounded enemy fights with desperate ferocity. But an enemy who sees potential escape but is then caught in the trap? They break. Alexander the Great used a modified envelopment at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE against the Persian Empire. His companion cavalry punched through the Persian flank, while his phalanx fixed the center. The Persians, seeing their king Darius flee, collapsed entirely. The Mongols under Genghis Khan and Subutai elevated envelopment to an art form. Their standard tactic involved feigned retreats, drawing enemies into positions where Mongol wings could close around them. At the Battle of Kalka River in 1223, they encircled and destroyed a Russian army that outnumbered them by chasing a retreating Mongol force for 9 days. The pattern repeats throughout history because it exploits fundamental aspects of human psychology and battlefield geometry that don't change. Fast forward to August 1944. The German army is trapped in the Falaise Pocket in Normandy. American forces under Patton have swept around their southern flank. British and Canadian forces push from the north. The Germans are caught in a double envelopment. 50,000 are captured. 10,000 are killed. It's Cannae with tanks instead of cavalry. Or consider Operation Desert Storm in 1991. The coalition's plan wasn't a frontal assault into Kuwait. It was a massive left hook, sweeping armored divisions around the Iraqi flank while fixing their attention on the coast with amphibious feint operations. When coalition forces struck from an unexpected direction, Iraqi units were encircled, cut off from supply and retreat. The ground war lasted 100 hours. It was an envelopment executed with helicopters, satellites, and armor. The principle remains identical to what Hannibal did 2,200 years earlier. Fix the enemy's attention, maneuver around their flanks, close the trap, destroy their ability to fight or flee. Modern technology just enables it to happen faster and at greater scale. You might think modern warfare, with drones, precision missiles, and satellite surveillance, would make ancient tactics obsolete. But the double envelopment persists for fundamental reasons. First, battlefield geometry hasn't changed. Surrounding an enemy still concentrates your force while dispersing theirs. Whether it's Bronze Age spearmen or mechanized infantry, encircled units lose effectiveness. Second, human psychology hasn't evolved. Soldiers still panic when surrounded. Commanders still struggle to maintain control when their formations are broken. The moral collapse Hannibal exploited at Cannae happens in modern combat, just as readily. Third, the principle scales. You can execute a double envelopment with 50,000 men on foot or with armored divisions spread across hundreds of miles. The core concept, fix and flank, applies from squad-level tactics to theater-wide operations. The U.S. Army's current doctrine, outlined in FM 3-0 operations, explicitly includes envelopment as a primary offensive maneuver. It's taught at West Point. It's drilled in officer training. It's planned in war games. Because it works. If the double envelopment is so effective, why doesn't every battle end in complete annihilation? Because it's extraordinarily difficult to execute. First, you need mobility advantage. Hannibal had superior cavalry. Modern forces need air superiority, better logistics, or faster-moving units. If both sides are equally mobile, neither can flank the other effectively. Second, you need an enemy willing to commit. The Romans at Cannae pushed deep into Hannibal's center. If they'd been more cautious, they could have avoided the trap. Modern militaries are trained to recognize envelopment attempts and refuse to be fixed. Third, you need information dominance. Hannibal knew where Roman forces were and could time his cavalry's return perfectly. Modern militaries use reconnaissance assets to avoid being caught unaware. But when conditions align, when one force has mobility, the enemy commits too deeply, and the enveloping force maintains information control, the results are catastrophic. Ask the Iraqi Republican Guard about the left hook in 1991. 22 centuries separate Cannae from Desert Storm. In that time, we've invented gunpowder, aircraft, computers, and nuclear weapons. We've gone from bronze swords to hypersonic missiles, but the double envelopment remains as devastating today as it was when Hannibal surrounded the Roman legions. Because it's not really about weapons or technology. It's about understanding how humans fight, how fear spreads through an army, and how geometry determines who can bring force to bear. Those things are constant. The next time you hear about a military operation using a flanking maneuver or encirclement, remember Cannae. Remember that a Carthaginian general figured out the perfect way to destroy an army, and remember that we're still using his playbook. Now I want to hear from you. If you were commanding a modern military force, could you pull off a Cannae-style double envelopment with today's technology? Or has modern surveillance made it impossible to hide your movements long enough? Drop your tactical analysis in the comments. And if this changed how you think about military history, share this video with someone who thinks ancient warfare has nothing to teach us. Because Hannibal would disagree.